It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. Neil Park, DMD, FAGD, DICOI, diplomat in Congress of Oral Implantology. He is Glidewell Dental's Vice President of Clinical Affairs. After receiving his DMD from Temple University School of Dentistry, Dr. Park practiced dentistry for 12 years before beginning his career in the dental implant industry. For the past 2 decades, Dr. Park has held top leadership positions at companies such as Nobel, Biocare, Schein. He is recognized for his work in the creation of management of innovative programs designed to bring technology to private practitioners. He is responsible for the development and implementation of key changes in the predoctoral implant curriculum of universities throughout North America. He joined Glidewell 3 years ago in 2016, where he now oversees clinical research and development, as well as training and education programs in implant, restorative, and aesthetic dentistry. In addition, he serves as an executive editor of Chairside magazine. It is, I mean, my gosh, your background, Zimmer Dental, Schein, and their implant camlog, Clear Choice, Vice President, Professor at Nobel Biocare. Man, it is an honor to have you on the show today.
Well, thanks, Howard. It's an honor to be here with you. You're certainly a pioneer in your way of communicating to so many dentists, and it's a great opportunity to be able to reach so many people.
You know, we've seen so many changes in your background in implants. I mean, Nobel Biocare. I remember when they started Nobel Biocare, he would only lecture to oral surgeons, and you had to pull teeth to get them to add periodontist. And now general dentists have taken over implants around the world. And then you went to Clear Choice, which is the largest provider of all-on-4s. And then Schein with camlog. And then Zimmer Dental. I wanted to ask you about Zimmer Dental because I read on the internet that Zimmer Dental put told Wall Street they're willing to sell that division off. Was that marketing?
That's totally true. Yeah, that was a public announcement. So what happened was Zimmer acquired Biomed. So and these were orthopedic deals, right? These were 2 huge orthopedic companies, 2 leaders in the industry, and each of them just happened to have a dental division. So as they merged the orthopedic divisions, they merged these 2 dental divisions together. And what probably is happening is that the executives at Zimmer Biomed said, you know, the trajectory of a dental business is a little bit different than the pathway of a orthopedic business. So we're going to be best off spinning this off. So I would imagine at some point there'll be some deep pockets are going to come by and purchase that great company in Zimmer Biomed, and they'll be off serving us in dentistry some more.
Do you think it'll be Straumann? Because Straumann sells more implants than anyone through mergers and acquisitions. They bought Neodent in Brazil, MIS in Israel. They seem to be the most M&A intuitive. Do you think that'll be a natural for them?
If there was something in particular that this Zimmer Biomed had that they didn't have, you know, so as you mentioned, Straumann's done a great job. They have their premium implant line globally, and then they have some value implant lines that they've purchased. So they've got that part of the market covered. It may be, for example, Zimmer Biomed has that very nice line of regenerative products, so all the nice Zimmer regen products. So they may decide to purchase it for those products if the numbers work out for them. But you're absolutely right. Straumann's done a great job with mergers and acquisitions, and they certainly know their way around this space.
And I really love Marco Godola. He's the CEO of Straumann, and he came on the show, episode 839, and it was amazing. It was a new format I did. I did a podcast live at a seminar I was lecturing in Canada, and he took questions from the field, and you never know what what crazy thing a dentist is going to say. And man, he was just, he held his ground. He was an amazing man. And I want to tell you that growing up Catholic in Kansas with 7 brothers and sisters and my grandparents in Parsons and all these small towns, your boss, your owner, Jim Glidewell, has always been a personal hero of mine, just like the CEO of Southwest Airlines. When I started flying back in the 80s, only rich people could fly, only people getting paid for by a Fortune 500 company or the government. And Herb Kelleher said, you know, keep one eye on the customer and one eye on your costs until you can drive down the price of what you sell until the middle class has the freedom to afford to fly. And if anybody has been more dedicated to driving down the cost of dental laboratories so that the average American can have the freedom to save their teeth, it has been Jim Glidewell. If dentistry, I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, he really is. He's absolutely a role model. I love the fact, and plus he's Irish. That might be a bias there, but the fact that he just on Dental Town for 30 years, when people sit there and try to talk trash about Glidewell or something, I just say, yeah. And you're using like people would, you go to these courses, they'd recommend these labs that charge $300 a unit. I said, how's that going to help anybody in my family? I mean, that might help someone in Key Biscayne or Beverly Hills or Manhattan, but that ain't going to help the Farran family out. I mean, you know, I still pay for a lot of dentistry for family members just because they can't afford. Actually, it's cheaper to pay a dentist to do it back in Wichita than to fly him out here and do it myself. But yeah, I just love Jim Glidewell. I love his approach. He's the Southwest Airlines of dentistry. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And, you know, he's an inspirational leader, and he's absolutely focused in making quality dentistry available to more patients. That's what drives him all day long for the 49 years that he's had this laboratory. You know, and something like the Bruxer Crown, which you know, he was the inspiration behind that. He put together the R&D team that created this material, that created the procedures to make this, and now it's something where any dentist can purchase this crown for $99, provided to his patients at a really reasonable fee, and it's a tooth-colored, high-quality, high-strength, high-aesthetic restoration, and we just didn't have anything like that before. You know, you've been around not quite as long as I have, but in dentistry, where to get a beautiful, strong, aesthetic crown was always a challenge, and the monolithic zirconia really was a new solution to that problem.
Well, I'm very sad that today is January 29th, because it was on January 15th, 1970, that Jim Glidewell opened the doors to his first laboratory, serving 5 local dentists in Dustin, California. My gosh, what a true pioneer! And I've got to, we spoke on the same. What's that? Before Chicago Midwinter, the dental laboratories have a meeting. Is it the Chicago?
Oh, NADL. Yeah, NADL or LMT Lab Day, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And I think Jim and I are the only 2 people who have spoken on that program 4 times. Everyone else has spoken on it less than that. And every time you listen to Jim, you just think, my God, because he's sitting on so much data. I mean, doesn't he do like 5% of all the crowns in America?
It looks like we have about 7% of the U.S. Dental laboratory market, which doesn't sound like a lot for a company this size, but it's a very fragmented industry, as you know. Most labs employ fewer than 100 people.
Well, not when you and I were little. When you and I were little and got out of school, there were 15,000 dental laboratories, and now it's been cut in half, right? So what is there now? About 7,500?
Yeah, and it's hard. You know, it's harder to be a mom and pop dental laboratory.
How many do you think there are? How many dental labs?
I honestly couldn't tell you. If you say it's about 7,500, that sounds about right to me.
Yeah, I love it when people email me and say, "Do you have a quote for that statistic?" I always send them back. Yeah, Howard Farran. I've had a monthly column since 1994. Done 1,200 podcast interviews. I think I should be considered a source.
There you go.
But so the mom and pop, they just can't compete because there's too much technology equipment they have to acquire.
That's right. That's right. You know, it isn't like the old days when you needed some wax, a spatula, and a Bunsen burner, and you were in the lab business. It's different now. Just the software licenses that you have to purchase, or in our case, we develop our own software. So we actually have a software development company. You know, the scanners, the mills, all the design software that you have to have, and then of course since we're in a new area, especially with the Bruxer crowns, we had to develop our own methods for staining, finishing, and even for bonding some of the materials that we make. So it's kind of an end-to-end situation, and Jim prides himself on having that vertical integration and doing everything from creating the material all the way to helping the dentist learn how to use it successfully.
Well,
and everything in between.
The reason I envisioned Dental Town in it'll be 20 years to St. Patrick's Day, 1999, is because dentists are all alone, and they really want to see what everyone else is doing. And you do 7% of the dental laboratory business in the United States. Give us any macro stats you got, like what percent of crowns come in one at a time?
Oh, the bulk of crowns are single units. The bulk, yeah.
Do you know what percent that'd be?
No, I couldn't tell you offhand. I can look that up, and maybe we can do a little supplement for your readers. I don't want to give false statistics here, but the great bulk of work is single unit crowns, and look, we know why that is, right? If a patient comes in with a broken tooth or a broken alloy restoration, you don't have to be Zig Ziglar to get that patient to accept a crown, but to go,
That's a good line. I love. Can I steal that line from you at my seminar?
Absolutely. And I was in the room when Zig Ziglar was having his implants placed, so that's how it's meaningful to me.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Is he still alive?
No, he's not. He's no longer alive.
Oh my gosh, I'll never forget when I listened to remember when Tony Robbins came out with the 30-day personal power, and that's the idea I stole for the 30-day dental MBA. And,
there you go.
But I was I loved it because I had 4 boys and we were working out in the garage every day listening to these tapes. But he copied so many Zig Ziglar lines. I mean, your altitude, your attitude determines your altitude, your aptitude, which determines your altitude. I mean, he was a Zig Ziglar fan. Maybe he didn't know he was doing it on purpose, but my gosh, so much Zig Ziglar comes out of Tony Robbins. I mean, he was really a pioneer.
Oh. I mean, there's nothing left to say after Zig. I mean, he said it all. And what he was selling pots and pans in rural Alabama and developed his technique. So you got to be good to do that.
So when you and I came out of school in the 80s, it was the 3 years.
I'm from the 70s, but go ahead.
Oh,
anyway.
what year did you get out?
79.
Okay. Oh, Temple, 79. And I was 87, and the 3-unit bridge was the king. I mean, again, when you look at insurance statistics, the 4 first-year molars get all the dental work. I mean, what tooth's most likely to be MOD, crown, root canal, extracted? So back when we got out of school, when they were missing a first molar, it was a 3-unit bridge. Has the 3-unit bridge died? Like Bruxer killed the PFM. I mean, if you want to say what killed the PFM, which was a new thing when I was in school, going from gold crowns to these new PFMs, and Bruxer killed the PFM, did implants kill the 3-unit bridge, or do you still do a lot of 3-unit bridges?
Well, there's still a fair number of 3-unit bridges, but certainly the bulk of implants being done are those single tooth implants, and the most popular one is the lower first molar. That's where a lot of us got our start. Doing those, and hey, it's a better service for the patient. That's what it's all about. You know what they say, if you get a single tooth implant, it's a 1-tooth problem and you solve it as a 1-tooth problem. If you do a 3-unit bridge, you took your 1-tooth problem and you just turned it into a 3-tooth problem. And in the long run, the patient could be worse off, as that bridge needs to be remade, and the next time there's some endo involved, and then gee, maybe the time after that it becomes a 4-unit bridge or a 5-unit bridge. So it's a great service. It's a very conservative way of doing dentistry, not involving other teeth. And certainly, listen, Howard, as much as all of us as dentists work to learn new skills and to advance our practices, it's to a great extent, it's the patients that drag the dentists kicking and screaming into implant dentistry, because they're not going to accept that 3-unit bridge. They want something better. They're not going to accept that partial denture or that lower denture that flops around. And a large number of dentists have been forced into this technology by the demands of their patients.
So you're also, you're the VP of the only place that is both a manufacturer of dental implants and an implant dental laboratory. Glidewell has your subsidiary. What is it? Prismatic Dentalcraft Inc. fabricates both the inclusive dental implant and the Han dental implant. That's another guy. Han's from Ohio.
He's been your guest on here, hasn't he?
He's what?
Dr. Han, have you had him as your guest?
No, I know. My gosh, I lectured to him. I went to his lectures in Ohio when I still had hair. That guy has been, tell him to come on the show. I would kill to have him come on the show. So
he was the keynote speaker at our Glidewell symposium that we had in October in DC, and he absolutely killed it. He just killed it. You know, he can still get up there and teach great dentistry, show beautiful cases, but he's just so incredibly entertaining. He has such a great way of relating to the audience. So
did you film it?
Yeah, we've got it on a video. We'll put little clips out there.
My God, if you film the lecture, send it to me, and I'll put it on Dentaltown Online Continuing Education.
Well, there you go.
We'll make a CE course out of it because
I think we can do that.
Because
Absolutely.
a lot of those guys that lecture and do clinical and all that stuff, they just don't want to do the graphic. They just don't want to mess with it. A lot of our online CE, these dentists say, oh yeah, you can do it if we send a camera guy out there and film it, and we do a lot of that. Howard Goldstein flies all around the country because these dentists say, yeah, I'd love to do it, but I just don't have the time or the technique.
Well, we've got some nice programs up there. We just put a program with Tim Kaczynski onto your educational site. A great job, and there's some programs we helped out with for Chuck Schlesinger put some on, and that's a really nice program where Chuck takes people through kind of step by step to get started with implants. But yeah, we look forward to working with you. You've got a great platform. You've got some devoted dentists that really want to advance their skills, and we're happy to support that.
Yeah, Charles Schlesinger. He used to be in Albuquerque. What was the implant? What implant company was that?
He was a company called OCO. OCO. And before that, when I was general manager of Camlog in the U.S., and Chuck was one of our national instructors for that as well. So he's been teaching for quite a while.
And the other guy you mentioned, Tim, is
Tim.
That guy, Tim Kaczynski, he's been in the implant business as long as you have.
I believe so. In fact, I met him in the early days. He was one of the few GPs that broke through very early on, and he still has an incredible practice going up in Bingham Farms, Michigan, does beautiful work, and very, very busy practitioner.
So, I know that a lot of people listening are going to say, he's biased because he works for Glidewell, so he's going to be all pro Han implants or whatever, or inclusive. But, I mean, is an implant an implant an implant? Or, well, here's the succinct question. The greatest dental meeting in the world is every other year. It's coming up in Cologne, Germany. I've been to it a half dozen times, and about 100,000 dentists show up to the IDS meeting in Cologne, Germany. You got to go. It's so damn cool. If you walk at the normal pace that you walk when you go for a walk around the block, you couldn't walk by every booth in the 5 days that it's there. Every dentist you talk to is from a different country. It's so damn cool and romantic. But dude, do you want to know how many dental implant companies got a booth scheduled to be there this year?
Do you know the number? Because I know last time I went, it was over 200. I don't know what it'll be this year.
Italy alone has 400 dental implant companies. Just the country of Italy. So my homies listening right now, they don't want to go learn 25 different systems, and they know all the old dogs like me already have 5 or 6 systems. If someone was going to get into implants and they were just going to buy one system, what would you recommend?
Well, you're right. I am biased, and I'm going to unapologetically say they should buy the Han system. And the reason for that is there are certain characteristics of a dental implant that the market has decided are the right way to go, okay? it's got to be a tapered implant, right? So, and it's got to have a conical connection, and it's got to have a platform shift, and it's got to have a fairly aggressive thread to give you good immediate stability, right? So now if you look for all of those characteristics, you've probably gotten rid of 50 or 60% of the implants on the market.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. You said say the three. It was just three things. Say it again. Tapered.
Yeah, you want a tapered implant body. You want a conical connection that allows you a platform shift, right? And you want a moderately aggressive thread to give you good immediate stability.
Okay.
To me, those are the things that you have to have.
Unfortunately, people our age read books and newspapers, and the people that listen to podcasts, 25%. Send me an email, howard@dentaltown.com, or leave a comment in the YouTube channels, youtube.com/dentaltown magazine. But 25% of them are still in school. The rest are all under 30. So take each one of those three one by one and explain it like you were talking to dental kindergarten.
Sure. So as far as a tapered implant, the shape of your implant, it's either a parallel walled implant, which the original Brandemark was, and there's still a lot of parallel walled implants on the market. The problem with that is that it's harder to get immediate stability, and that shape also doesn't mimic the shape of the tooth root that it's replacing. Right? If you have a tapered implant, then you have a better opportunity to get good primary stability, which of course you're not going to get secondary stability if you don't have primary stability, right? So that taper gives you the opportunity to go that. So we're good on the tapered shape?
Yep.
Okay. The connection, right? The first Brandemark implant was a hex top implant, and it was a flat on a flat. Okay, and that meant that if it got forces from the side, torquing forces, that connection was going to open up. And if the connection opens up enough, you get a loose screw. So then the internal connection was developed, and it was refined over the years. So now it's the state-of-the-art connection is a conical connection with a hex somewhere inside that internal connection. And then it's also been shown that a platform shift where the abutment is slightly less diameter than the implant platform, that gives you a little more opportunity to create a favorable situation for the soft tissue. Okay, so that's called a platform shift. So that's the second part, is the stable internal connection with the platform shift. And the third part is the threads. The thread design has to be such that you've got good primary stability. So Howard, an implant goes in and it doesn't fall out originally because of the primary stability, right? That's mechanical, right? It's like putting a screw into wood. It's that initial primary stability. And secondary stability is the key to long-term success. So those are the three things that I think are important. I learned this from Jack Hahn, right? So Jack was originally a Stereos user back when I was with Nobel Biocare, and then he developed the Replace system. And then right before I joined here at Glidewell, he worked with the folks here and designed the Hahn system. And in addition to having those basic characteristics that I believe are key to success, we've got a really good support system here at Glidewell, and I'll tell you, one of the best things about the Hahn system is if you submit a Hahn case to the lab, you get 20% discount on your lab bill. And our implant lab is, if not the largest in the country, it's pretty darn close. I don't know of one that's even close in size. So you send the case in on a Hahn implant, you get 20% off on your lab bill. That's kind of a good thing, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but you own two implant companies. You have the Inclusive Dental Solution, and you have the Hahn.
Right.
So do you like one of those more than the other?
I do. So the Inclusive is basically a clone of the old Zimmer TSV, the tapered screw vent. It's pretty much that implant. That implant was very early to come off of patents, and so it's been frequently copied. And that's why we chose that design, because it's kind of ubiquitous in dentistry. Everybody's been copying it for many, many years. It's a 20-year-old design. I like the Hahn implant more because it takes into account so much that we've learned over the last 20 years about implant design. And believe me, Jack Hahn was here. In fact, he was here a couple of weeks ago. But he comes here, he sits with our engineers, he works with our trainers to share with them the benefits of his many, many years of expertise and experience.
Well, next time he's at Glidewell, take him into the studio and have him Skype me. And
okay.
That would be and if you got now that his killer lecture he gave, I would love to put that up on Dental Town. That guy is a legend. And the other thing I like about him, same reason Jim, he's not from the rich hoity-toity part of town. I mean, he did this in nowhere, Ohio.
That's right. Well, Cincinnati, and he tells, of course, Jack tells a lot of great stories, but basically he went and took a course. It was he took the course in an upstairs above a dry cleaning place in Brooklyn. Came back home, did the first one for free because he was learning, and the second one he charged for because now he was an expert, and he's gone from there.
And also back then. I got to remind you, young kids, don't throw these pioneers under a bridge, because when I was in dental school from 84 to 87, the lectures would openly talk trash about the one oral surgeon who was placing implants. They called them butchers. I remember some of the greatest implant pioneers in these small redneck flyover states. And the first time they'd have a case go bad, the local board would take their license away. And I knew a couple of these guys, they just went into depression, alcoholism, and ended up in a trailer. And these guys were pioneers. So those guys did remember subperiosteals and blades?
Yep.
And these were miracle solutions, but come on, how many subperiosteals might go bad, might get infected, might look ugly?
You know what? This is really instructive, Howard. If you take a look at some of these patients that have had ramus frames and subperiosteals, and when those cases fail, as most of them do at some point, when those cases fail, they immediately want to know when you can put another one in, when you can retreat them. Because as much as they suffered with the failure of that prosthesis and that support mechanism, it was so much better than having a floating lower denture. And these pioneers did a lot for people, and our profession sits on the shoulders of giants.
I remember the first time I was with a guy taking an impression of a subperiosteal, and I was so frightened that the impression would lock around the mental foramen. And I mean, and what these guys did and how some of them were treated and what happened to their careers was just inexcusable. Tribalism, thinking in fear and scarcity. Gosh darn, it's come so far. So don't throw.
You're right. When I was in dental school, I only learned two things about implants. One is that they don't work, and the other is that ethical doctors don't mess with them. And that was it. That was the total of my learning.
And I had to sign to finish my operative dentistry class. The chairman of operative made us all sign an ethical statement that we would never place these new composites because they were plastic, they were garbage, they were crap. And amalgam was and amalgams do last longer than composites. I get all that. But what my operative instructor didn't get is that if you told every woman in Phoenix when I opened up in 87 that the black silver filling would last twice as long as the tooth colored, what did 100% of them pick?
They want tooth colored.
The tooth colored. I mean, I don't have hair, but I'm sure when girls go to the salon and bleach your hair, I'm sure it's not good for it. But they want tooth colored. You had to listen to the market. And the other thing I liked about tooth colored fillings and ortho and all that is I always notice with Americans that if they don't like their teeth, they don't take care of them. They don't brush, they don't floss, they don't go to the dentist. But if they start to like their teeth, I mean, I noticed that with bleaching. Clear back. Remember when it was Omni bleaching, came out of Arkansas, nowhere's $900 for 6 bottles. I said, no one's going to pay for this. Oh, everybody did. And but what I noticed with the bleaching is that once they started to bleach your teeth, then it was like, well, what about this filling? And what about this missing tooth? And with humans, you either bowl on a bowling league and own your own bowl, or you haven't been bowling in 10 years. You either own a boat and go to the lake every week, or you haven't been to the lake in 10 years. And that's the way dentistry is. The people that don't take care of their teeth, they don't like their teeth, that they're ashamed of their teeth, they think they have bad teeth, And if you can just get this patient to say, no, you had good teeth, and not talking down to your patients. So many dentists are condescending, and they're like, they make them feel bad. Well, people who feel bad aren't going to come back and give you money. You got to be that coach. And in fact, I still think most boys, the reason they excel at the sport they are is because at the earliest juncture, a coach in that sport was making them feel good. And that's why they ended up in hockey or lacrosse or wrestling as opposed to some of the more famous one. And you're not going to be a great coach making everybody feel bad, so.
Sure. And so many patients whose teeth are in terrible shape, who aren't seeking dental care, they've had some kind of bad experience or an experience that they interpret as being a bad experience that validates what they're doing. And that was something I learned at ClearChoice, because most of the patients that seek care at ClearChoice haven't been to a dentist of any kind in 10 years. And it's the situation you're talking about. They hate their teeth. They don't want to invest any money. They don't want to put any care into it. And then they hear that there's a way to get this taken care of. And the organization supports them and gives them a good buying experience, right? They give them a pathway. You're going to do this, this, and this, and you're going to get this done in this period of time. And that's what people want. They want a clear buying pathway to get the things that they want. And I'm saying want, not need. Right, because we're driven by wants, not so much by needs.
And back to fear and scarcity thinking versus hope, growth, and abundance. I remember when ClearChoice came to Phoenix, Arizona, all the oral surgeons and periodontists were all getting up in arms and starting to get tribal and protective. Well, what did they do? They went on TV. They did a gazillion commercials, and that lifted all the dental implant boats. You had patients coming in saying, I saw this commercial on TV about this and that. And they didn't, and for every one that went to ClearChoice, probably 9 went to back to their same dentist and started asking the right questions. So it's not about fear and scarcity, it's about hope, growth, and abundance.
That's been proven over and over and over again.
And what's also amazing about ClearChoice,
people moving because they don't know that there's a solution. And if someone comes on TV and tells them there's a solution, well, great. If they've got a relationship with a local dentist, they'll go see that dentist. If they don't, they'll go see the person that's doing the advertising.
And if you want to throw ClearChoice under a bus, ClearChoice does about 20,000 units a year for $25,000 an arch. And 95% of the dentists, when they retire, they never did one $25,000 treatment plan in their life, unlike the American patient who buys 13 cars between the ages of 16 and 70, new cars for a median price of $33,500, and 5% of the dentists block off Fridays for their big case, and they do a big case like that every Friday their whole career, and the other 95% of dentists will never do it one time in their life because they just think that nobody has any money and nobody buys a new car, nobody gets all their teeth done, and you should be learning from these legends, not being afraid of them.
Great point. Great point. And ClearChoice is a great organization. Actually, my old boss, Kevin Mosher, the former CEO of Nobel Biocare, is the CEO of ClearChoice, and he's a great leader. And they're always moving forward and trying to serve more people in better ways. So now, yeah, I have absolutely no issues with ClearChoice.
Did Nobel Biocare turn into was that Nobel Pharma? Are those two separate companies or?
Well, yeah, it's a little complicated, but the company that originally was Nobel Pharma changed its name to Nobel Biocare due to a change in ownership back in the Swedish days, right? And so that I think that probably happened about maybe, I'm going to guess and say around 95 that happened. And then that company was a freestanding publicly traded company, and then it purchased Stereos, which was a tremendously advanced and rapidly growing U.S.-based company. And that combination of Nobel, which was the Bronnemark system, and Stereos, which was a real up-and-coming company, that created the Nobel Biocare that we know today, which, of course, that company has since been acquired by Danaher.
Well, then what's Nobel Pharma then right now out of Japan?
There is no Nobel Pharma, and there hasn't been a Nobel Pharma since the 90s.
No, really? So they're gone, huh?
They're gone. They're gone.
Man, there's so many changes going on. So, you've been in this field a long time. Are you more focused at Glidewell? Are you more focused on dental implants, or crown and bridge, or restorative adhesives?
So I am focused on helping doctors be successful with new technologies. So a lot of that is creating content. So I spend a lot of my time with our Chairside magazine, trying to make that magazine better and more useful to doctors all the time. I spend a lot of time with our educational programs. We started a fellowship. I began our Glidewell Symposium, which in 2019 is going to be our third Glidewell Symposium, which is, has become a very big event. So that's what I'm doing.
Where's that going to be next year?
What's that?
Where's that going to be next year?
We're going to be in Orlando in November 2019 at the Shingle Creek. It's the, that's the hotel that's got the Hilton on one side and the Waldorf Astoria on the other. So depending on how wealthy you feel when you check in, you can get a fancy room or a
Does Jim speak at those meetings?
He does. He opens up the meeting. Absolutely.
Nice. I'm going to have to hit that. That's a, sounds.
We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you.
But when you talk about technology, let's keep it real. These kids are coming out of dental school, $400,000 in debt, and they email me, howard@dentaltown.com. They say, dude, I'm $250,000 to $350,000 to $400,000 in debt. If they get married in dental school and have kids, they're over $400,000 and LDS. And they'll say, if I buy a Dentsply Sirona CAD cam and a CBCT and a Lanap laser, I just double my student loan debt. So when you talk about incorporating new technologies to be successful, I know what my homies are thinking. They're like, dang, does DDS stand for Doctor of Debt Service? I mean, how much debt do I have to go into to be successful? So talk to my Doctor of Debt Service dentist with student loans and tell me what technologies do you think have a return on investment? And I'm gonna hold your feet to the fire with my first question. Do they need to buy a Dentsply Sirona CAD cam for $140,000?
I would strongly recommend that they not do that. Okay. So Howard, this whole CAD cam thing, it didn't roll out the way it should have rolled out. What happened was the Cerex and E4Ds of the world came out and said, you need to buy this 6-figure system so that you can scan and you can design and you can mill all at one time. And besides being incredibly expensive, that's very disruptive to a practice, right? The way this should have rolled out, and if it would have rolled out this way, Howard, every dentist in the world would be a digital dentist right now. It should have rolled out with the intraoral scanner.
All right.
Okay. A guy that has an intraoral scanner cannot imagine how he lived without one. Okay. You get an intraoral scanner. Now, our partner is Itero. So if you get an Itero.
Really? Jim Glidewell's partner is Itero, owned by Align Technology.
So we built a mill and we created the materials to be used in that mill, and we created the software to be used in designing the crown to be milled. And then we picked Itero because it's a great scanner, it's got great support, and it's got a terrific network. So, of course, right now, Itero users have been buying our Glidewell.io mill like crazy, and then a lot of people have been joining in and
say that again.
Glidewell.
Say it again. Glidewell.
Glidewell.io. So that's our mill, the fast mill. And it's much less expensive than the other mills that you mentioned, and it works. And what's really great, Howard? It will mill a fully sintered Bruxer block, right? So it isn't one of these things where you're gonna get a pre-sintered block, mill it, and then put in the oven forever. No, you're gonna get a fully sintered Bruxer. It's called Bruxer Now. You put it in the mill, and in 55 minutes, you've got a finished Bruxer crown to insert into your patient. So that's quite an advantage. And as you know, Bruxer is quite a bit stronger than the lithium disilicates that are typically used in a Cerex scanner.
So it's Glidewell.io. So IO, that's like .com. What does IO stand for?
In office.
Yeah, but for a domain name, it probably had to come from a country. What?
No, it's not. It's not a domain name. It's just our product name. So if you want information about it, just come to the Glidewell website, and we've got information there.
.io. Let me find out. It's you're okay. So your site is glidewell.io. But what I'm saying is to use that .io when it was set up, that's for the British Indian Ocean Territory. So any .io, because there's some really neat ones. But yeah, when you go look at the list of countries, that can be your instead of using .com or .org or .edu for education. But yeah, .io, that's cool because that's the name of your system. So you guys use the British Indian Ocean Territory. Tell your marketing team, whoever did that I'm thoroughly impressed. But because IO, it's not the British Indian Territories, it's Glidewell. IO stands for In-Office Solution, which is a versatile suite of technologies that empowers clinicians, providing an immediate portal to Glidewell Dental and the ability to create restorations right in place for same appointment crowns, design and mill with ease. But do you think it's a better business decision to take that iTero scanner, scan it, and send it to the lab, or to actually really do that in office chairside? And
so it's different strategies for different people, right? So ideally, you want to have the choice, right? So you want to be able to scan the patient, design the crown, and then decide, is this a person where I've got to get the shade just right and I've got to have all the contours just right? Then I'm going to go ahead and check this box and send that to Glidewell Laboratories to be fabricated. Or this is an airline pilot that needs to be out of town tomorrow, so I need to sit down here and pull out my Bruxer Now block and mill it right now. So it's ideal to have that flexibility. But when you talk about ROI for the young dentist who's got a heavy debt burden, hey, get the scanner. Start with that. Get involved in digital dentistry.
You recommend they get the iTero scanner?
Get the iTero scanner. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, later on, decide. You can always add the mill later on.
So you guys wrote the software for iTero for the scanning to go to a milling out the crown?
So there's 3 steps, right? There's scanning, there's designing, and there's milling. Right, so the iTero is a freestanding scanner. We didn't write the software that controls that, but we wrote the software that designs the crown, and it's a very intuitive software. Even I can design a crown on the software, our design software, and then you just send it to the mill, or you can send it to be milled by the lab.
So here's my take on that. Yeah, if somebody needs the crown today, you can do that. But to milling it out in your office the whole time, how long do you think it takes for someone to numb up a first molar, prep it, scan it, design it, mill it, cement it, insert? What do you think the average time would be chairside? How long would that patient be in the operatory?
Probably talking 2.5 to 3 hours.
Right. So what I don't like about that... What I don't like about that is a lot of times the dentist doesn't like the crown, but he doesn't have the guts to say, God, I'm sorry, but Neil, do you care if I redo this and you sit in the chair another 3 hours? Now, to put that in perspective, my sister went to have her hair colored, and she went in there at 3 and didn't get out till 9. So she sat there 6 hours for her hair, so it's not the end of the world. But I don't know. I just think the doctors who scan it and then send it to the lab, they have less remakes, right? I've heard that people who are sending in impressions have 5% remakes, and people sending in scans have 1%. Do you confirm that, or?
Yeah, much remakes. And you know why? I mean, you've seen the scan. You can take a look at it. If you miss the margin, it's on your screen. You know it happened, right? And the same token, when you go to design the crown, if the crown's not going to be right, you're going to know it right then and there. And Howard, as far as your question about whether this is what doctors want to do, I would just say, here is the largest dental lab in the country whose job it is to fabricate crowns for doctors, right? And we got into in-office milling. Why did we do that? And the point is that you cannot fight the trend. The technology has developed. It's going to be a certain percentage of crowns are going to be fabricated in office, and we've got some tools and talents that'll help people get there. We do not expect 75% of crowns ever to be fabricated in office, but there will be a certain percentage, and we want to be there with a great offering to help them do that.
And how much is a starter set? And by the way, this isn't a commercial. Did you pay me to come on the show?
No, I did not.
And did I not beg you to come on the show for almost 1,200 days? I've been asking you and Jim and Jack on, and you kept saying, no, your show. Yeah, so this is not a commercial, people.
Right.
So how much would it cost her to get into the Hahn implant system? How much money would it cost her out of pocket to get into this system?
So you can get into the Hahn implant system for about $2,500. Okay, so you're going to buy 10 implants and get a kit. You know, if you want to, I mean, the great thing about the Hahn system is that the implants are $160. And they're absolutely made of the best materials in the world, the best engineers, the best machinists, the best equipment you can get. You know, if you know Jim Glidewell, we don't skimp. That's the advice that he always gives me in any project that I do. Don't skimp, make it right. And you know, we've got a factory. I don't know if you can see behind me. So I'm in Newport Beach, California. Our implants are made in that building right over there. They don't come from Asia or Europe or anywhere else. Or, you know, they come from Newport Beach, California, by some of the most experienced and high quality machinists in the world. And you know, we're just able to do that. You know, you can certainly spend 3 times as much money on another implant if that makes you feel better, or that rep is in your office and provides some service that you value. That's great. Go ahead and do that. But if you're looking for a high quality implant that you can use to offer your patient a great service at a fair price, I don't really see how you could do any better.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, well,
I was going to say we had this great experience with Carl Misch. We had some opportunity to work with the Misch Institute, which I consider to be the really preeminent group as far as a freestanding training institute for dental implants. And Carl, when he was alive, he took a good hard look at the implant and said, this is great. This is better than implants that cost much more. And so, you know, and now with Dr. Randy Resnick running the Misch Institute and doing most of the teaching, that's actually become a great source of new customers for us, is our relationship with the Misch Institute, because the faculty there, the students in the laboratories, they have such a great experience using this very well designed product.
Carl Misch's podcast with me is the most viewed of all time. It was 12,000 on YouTube. It was a gazillion on Facebook and all that stuff. And I got my fellowship at the Misch Institute before I got my diplomat in the International Congress of Implantology. But I loved that guy so much because when I walked out of school, they told me that, you know, these butchers placing implants, these butchers doing sinus lifts, you know, they're all butchers. And so here's how stupid me lucked into Carl. I wanted to get my FAGD because whenever I went to the continuing education courses, the dentists had their FAGD and their MAGD. They were elite dentists, had elite practice, so I said, okay, I need to be like them. I want to get my MAGD. Well, I got my FAGD, which is 500 hours of lecture, but then the MAGD was 600 hours and 400 had to be hands-on. And so I didn't want to place implants. And so I called the guy and said, I don't want to go take a bunch of stupid implant courses because I'm not going to place them and I don't believe them. And I think, you know, they're butchers and all this stuff like that. And he goes, well, sorry, we're not changing the curriculum for you. But if you go take Carl's course, you can fill all your hands on. So I had my hands crossed. I had a bad attitude. I flew to Pittsburgh 3 days a week. And my gosh, I wasn't in there for an hour. And I met Carl. And I was scared. He had an anesthesiologist, had the patient tender, and he's doing full mouth, you know, incisions and flaps, and he's placing like 20 implants, and half the time he's looking me in the eyes, talking to me like we're sitting at a bar eating a hamburger, and I couldn't even talk. I mean, it's kind of like you want to learn how to shoot a gun, but you sign up for war, and you go to war for a year, and then you come back, and shooting your little 12 gauge looks like nothing. So I feel like I went to the Vietnam of dental implants. And when you walked out of there, then I went back to Phoenix to place that one little implant to replace a molar. I felt embarrassed because I knew guys like Carl were placing, you know, what do you think is the most number of implants he placed in a day?
Oh, gosh, I wouldn't know. But I would say it would certainly hit 3 figures.
Yeah. I mean, and so when you would go back there and watch this guy, and then come back, you were fearless because you weren't dissecting out the metal foramens and doing all this stuff. I mean, he was so amazing.
Yeah. And you know what he did that'll last forever is he he systematized and made it into a science. Like so many areas, it starts as an art form, right? In my hands, this works if I do it a certain way. But Carl's idea was to systematize it. So he had the bone densities and the bone volumes, and he created a system for the way you restore cases. The different fixed designs, the different removable designs. I mean, that's the beauty, and that'll live on forever. And that is, his textbooks are the most purchased books in the history of dentistry, and they should be, because no one has ever put it together that way.
The first time I heard something was wrong is he actually counseled at our county meeting like a month before, and I thought, what? And they said, well, he's sick, and even when he got sick and they told him how long he had to live, he even doubled that. I mean, he was such a warrior.
Yes.
He outlived twice as long as the doctor said he would live, but just a total unbelievable man. And he was from Detroit originally, wasn't he?
Yes.
Because he was, again, I always got turned off by the elitist. I remember some of the early courts I went to, they'd say, these are A patients, these are B patients, and then they describe each one and talk about how you need to only and when they described each one, I thought, wow, the entire Farran family reunion is a D patient. And I'm listening to this schmuck and Key Biscayne. I mean, and Carl just kept it real. Yeah. I want to switch gears. Go ahead.
I had the opportunity to work with Carl in his final couple of years, and I've never seen anybody face what he faced with the heroic nature that he did. I mean, I will always remember that. He worked until the last possible moment that he could work because he was so motivated to get in front of students and to talk to them. So yeah, he's a hero, no question about it.
And no one's ever afraid of dying if they're married. Just remember that. And so I want to switch gears completely from dental implants to composites. You guys are your camouflage nanohybrid composite is you guys are in the composite business. How's that going, and what do you think of that?
We manufacture our own composite, and then part of that is we also manufacture our own composite blocks. So the composite crown has had its ups and downs in dentistry, but at this point we've developed a camouflage composite crown that can be milled very quickly in the office, and then we've developed a bonding protocol that makes it very, very safe. And as you know, if the crown either has to provide the strength as in Bruxer, or the bonding method has to provide the strength as in a camouflage crown. So it depends on the insurance plan and how it's reimbursed, whether it'll be useful to a doctor or not. But it's certainly a great option to have, and it mills very quickly. We do have our brand of camouflage composite that we sell at an extremely reasonable price, and it's a very high quality. And it's a development of our R&D department. We have almost 80 people working in the building next door to me in R&D. They're working on new formulations of Bruxer, new shading mechanisms, new software. There's just so many things that they're working on, and camouflage was a development by that group.
Well, when I was little, my dad on vacation, he wanted to always go to an amusement park. I mean, we got in out there where you are. Here we are in Wichita, Kansas. We got in a station wagon and drove from Wichita, Kansas to Disneyland. And during the station wagon, and me and my 5 sisters were in the back playing Monopoly. No seatbelts, and just blankets and pillows. Played Monopoly the whole way. My mom and dad were in the front seat with a big case of Pabst Blue Miller ribbon or something, drinking the beers and throwing them out the windows. And we drive all the way down there and see Disneyland or Six Flags, all this stuff. But he always stopped at manufacturing places. So I got to see all these things manufactured, like Coors Beer, Bud. I got to see our family station wagon made while we were being pulled by a golf cart, He just loved manufacturing. So I love that tradition. So when the first time I ever went to Disneyland or Disney World and all the Disneyland, I took my 4 boys. I mean, I've taken my 4 boys through Glidewell probably, 5 times. And the first time I went in there, I was nobody from nowhere. I had these 4 kids, and Jim gave us a tour. I mean, he spent an hour answering my Eric, who's now 28. Eric was probably 8 and asking him these, dental questions because his dad was a dentist. And Jim was answering that guy as if he was Carl Misch asking the question. And he was so sweet. But you could tell, and I tell dentists to do this because I have learned, I mean, you can go take a tour of a company and you'll know more about their product line and what they do. And also, I'll tell you another thing. Some companies you go in there, there's nobody with a PhD, there's nobody in R&D, but they have a 50-person call center and some cheerleader with a thermometer dialing for dollars, and it's all about the money. And then you go to other companies and it's all about the science. It's all about the research. And then my one is I'm always pulling over anytime someone introduces themselves. I always say, how long have you been here? And some of these companies are all sales oriented companies, no R&D, and nobody's worked there 3 or 4 years. And that's my first red flag. In fact, I wish the SEC would mandate employee turnover, employee longevity. I mean, if I was going to go into a sector of airlines and there were 9 airlines and I could just see the chart of how long the average employee has been there, I would just buy the one where the employees have been there the longest. And that's another thing when you're talking about buying a dental practice. Why would you buy a dental practice where the oldest person in that office has been there 3 years? I mean, my new hygienist, the one we just hired, has been there 9 years. So Jim's is class act. So these this is Dentistry Uncensored, so let me throw you under a bridge. Some endodontists wonder that back in the old day when it was gold crowns or in a PFM, the porcelain would easily crack off the metal, that when somebody bit something hard, the weakest part was the porcelain to the metal. But now some people are wondering, since Bruxer, an elephant can stand on, that's not going to break. If you bite down on something too hard, then what would give? Would it be the root canal fracture? And if that is so, do you think we should go to softer stuff like camouflage blocks that could absorb some of the force? So do you think a crown like Bruxer can be too hard? And do you think it should shift back to something softer to absorb force, or do you not think that's an issue?
No, I don't think it's an issue, and I think there's, it's a theoretical issue, right? Gee, it seems like such a hard material, and it hits this other hard material. But the point is, at this time, Howard, there's 16 million Bruxer crowns that are out there, and then Drs. Gordon and Rella Christensen, they just published an 8-year clinical study, and what they found is that Bruxer wears the opposing dentition much less than any other material that they've ever tested. So a lot of the hypotheticals of, gee, this material seems so hard, so strong, it must be unkind to materials or to the natural dentition. It just hasn't proven out. So as you said, there's always a weak link in any system. It's interesting. I have a friend who's a prosthodontist at Clear Choice, and he put in, we do a full arch Bruxer implant bridge. So he had just done 10 cases of Bruxer against Bruxer, okay? And of course, people are saying, oh my goodness, that's rock against rock. It's got to be killing the implants, whatever. And we follow these cases, and there just isn't any issue. There just isn't any issue. So even though you've got theoretical concerns, the clinical data just doesn't bear that out. And at this point, I don't think there's more Bruxer crowns than gold crowns, but there's certainly more Bruxer crowns than any other kind of crown that's out there. So it's 16 is a lot.
How come all of my crowns and inlays and onlays, why are they all gold? And why did gold die, or is it still? Is there what percent of your business is gold?
It's a great material. It just got horrendously expensive, and at certain times that price will spike up. Right, and that's what really made Bruxer. That was the impetus to develop this product for Jim. It was it's actually Gordon Christensen and Rella. Rella Christensen. They had this list of things they wanted to develop for the perfect material, and they wanted it to be tooth color. They wanted it to be reasonable price. It's like the white version of gold. Okay, and the problem is gold just got too expensive, and Bruxer fulfills all these other requirements that they've listed. So we're lucky we have this material, or a lot of people would be priced out of the dental restorative market.
So let's go back to this iTero intraoral scanner, which is owned by Align Technology, which owns Invisalign. Do you all those patents, it seems like, have all starting to expire, and we've seen a explosion of clear aligners companies pop up on the market. Even Henry Schein's starting their own clear aligner. Is that a business that Glidewell wants to get into?
Not at this time. We're really a restorative-based business, and we really haven't done a lot with orthodontics at this time. That's not to say that we wouldn't be involved in the future, but at this time we're not. I think that clear aligners are a great part of the market, but as you mentioned, there's quite a bit of intellectual property that's closely protected by these companies, and we're not interested in treading on anybody's property.
Yeah. So I want you to put your dad hat on. You're old enough to have a child that just walked out of dental school. She's your daughter. She's 24. She just graduated from dental school. Let's say she's $300,000 in debt. You've been in this business for 31 years. You've hung out with the greatest minds, the greatest companies. What advice would you give her?
I would say pedal to the metal. Do it. Okay. There's a lot of trends driving dentists in a certain direction. And I'm on the dean's board of one of the dental schools, and I've seen our graduates, 40% of graduates every year go to work for DSO. And if you're comfortable doing that and you want to do that, I think it's great. I mean, there are some tremendous DSOs where you can have a great career. But my hypothetical daughter, I would say, hey, let's get the money. Let's go out there, because dentistry is a fantastic business. And if you go out there and treat it like a business and do your homework and do your research and commit to it and understand that you've got to know marketing, finance, operations, HR, all those other things, you've got to do that. And if you're willing to make that commitment and do it, you can be fantastically successful. And that's the direction I would point people to. People have different personalities.
And talk about thinking in fear and scarcity versus hope, growth, and abundancy. I'm interviewing the editorial director of Chairside magazine, which is one of the greatest dental magazines out there. And people, if someone's thinking, well, why would he advertise a competing magazine to Dental Town? It's because I think anybody who's doing anything to help my homies is my friend. I don't think in fear and scarcity. I've also never met a dentist who only reads one magazine. I mean, I don't know a dentist that even owns one implant system. Do you know any dentists that only own one implant system? There's Dental Town. Right on.
I read them all because, as you said, first of all, we can learn from everybody. Yeah. And secondly, hey, if I want to do a better job, I want to see what my competitors are doing as well, because I sure don't know.
And when someone declines my offer to come on the show, they say, well, I can't because I write for a competing magazine. It's like, well, I'm not competing with anybody, so how is there a magazine competing with me? I mean, back to implant systems. All my friends that are my age, guess how many implant systems they own?
3 to 5,
yeah,
I'd say.
Yeah. And how many composites do they have? How many composite kits? How many bonding agents? I mean, quit thinking it's stupid.
The refrigerators are filled, right?
Yeah. So talk about Chairside magazine. How many issues have you done? You're on.
Oh, so yeah, I've been here about 3 years, a little more than 3 years now. So we do 4 issues a year. Before that, we had 2 magazines. We had Inclusive magazine, which was all about implants, and then we had Chairside. We merged the 2 together a couple of years ago because we felt that implant dentistry was no longer a separate discipline. That if you're practicing general dentistry, you're involved in implants, and why have 2 different magazines? So what we try to do in each issue of Chairside, and I'm just finishing up the issue that'll be mailed in about a week, and we've got forensic dentistry. I got all my props here, Howard. We've got.
No, you know why I'm laughing?
Why?
Because it's a big joke in our office, because we say, well, if we want to be a better dental design magazine, we should be like Glidewell, their magazine, Chairside magazine, because seriously, if you go back like 20, 30 issues, it looks like the Miss Universe contest. I mean, I can hold up your online versions where every single one of them is a beautiful. So is that really your secret sauce? You first start with who's a gorgeous female dentist and then work backwards from there? Is that your strategy?
No, it's not. But all things being equal, Dr. Mary Shields, who's on the cover, happens to be a really sharp forensic dentist, and that's an area that a lot of dentists don't know about. And she photographs very well.
Well, the next time you see Rella, I want you to tell her that I said on my podcast that of all the beautiful women that have been on the cover of your magazine, Rella is still rocking it the hottest.
That's a very kind thing to say.
She
very
is
sweet.
so awesome. I think of her as my dental mom. It was her and Gordon who made me realize that if I studied everything known to dentistry, I could never figure it out, and that if I practice for 50 years, I'll still die with more questions than I have answers, because that's how complex. And it was actually Gordon and Rella who really made me realize, wow, I went into something. It's not like carpentry where you can actually figure out how to build a cabinet. This isn't plumbing where you can actually fix that toilet. You're into something that's probably not going to be all figured out for several thousand years. I remember Rella telling me one time, she goes, the pyramids were 5,000 years ago, and we're probably only halfway to understanding. I mean, like, I love that joke on physics. Like, physicists know everything except 95% of the mass of the universe, dark energy, black holes. I mean, you literally have a list of 20 things that physicists don't have a clue about. But then when they talk about what they know about, they act like they just really, really know everything. It's like, dude, the list of what you don't know is infinitely longer than what you do know. And that's what Rella gave to me. Rella and Gordon gave that to me, that I don't care how hard you try and how much you read and how much you study, they're not going to figure out dentistry for thousands of years.
And they have this insatiable curiosity. It's funny, Howard. It's you've probably been involved in some research. I have over the years, and it's so hard to produce good clinical research. If you go through the dental journals, there are really very few long-term, randomly controlled clinical trials. And that's what they do. They do these long-term trials. They took a look at materials. They don't look at it for 6 months, 8 months. Everything works for 3 years. It doesn't matter what it is. But let's see how it does in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. And that's the big difference. And that's, for them to publish this Bruxer study, this 8-year Bruxer study, was amazing for us, because there's nobody else that could do that.
Well, I can't believe you stayed on. I can't believe I got the dental director of the largest dental laboratory in the world to come on my show for free and talk to my homies. We went way over. The brand's an hour, and we're way over. But Neil, seriously, thank you for all that you've done for dentistry. Thank you so much for coming on the show. If you can get Jim Glidewell or Jack Hand to come on the show, I'll name my next grandchild after you, if I can get my boys to sign off on it. But thanks for all you've done for dentistry, and thanks so much. It was an honor and a privilege to podcast interview you.
An honor for me as well. I really enjoyed it, Howard, and I will work on Jim and Jack for you.
Well, tell Jim, if Jim's 100% Irish, so he has to come on the show, or I won't drink beer with him. But thanks a lot for coming on the show, buddy.